Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of the English Hour. I feel very proud. Fourth sounds like a good number. What do you think?
It sounds great. Hello
Yeah.
guys.
Hello. So, in today's episode, we'll talk about a problem that many people of our generation face, and that is,
Tech addiction.
yes, tech addiction will be the topic of today's discussion. And unlike the previous ones, we will not be talking about the pros and cons of tech addiction because, as I've just learned from John Beck, it's a disorder.
Yeah.
It's a medical disorder, so you cannot really talk about the pros of an illness, can you?
Yeah, you really can't. It would be artificial to argue in favor of something that is an addiction. So I think we're going to try to explain what addiction to technology really is and what problems and concerns it comes with.
Yeah, well, we have, I think, 3 to 4 main points. We'll first, after delving into the issue, we'll talk about the posture problems, eye problems and related problems, and the social problems that are associated with tech addiction. And finally, I think we'll talk about how tech addiction can chip away from the benefits of technology.
That's right. I think to categorize, we have a medical perspective on this. We also have a social perspective, and then we're also going to talk about what technology is and what addiction to technology means for technology itself.
Yeah, I think we can also talk about the causes of tech addiction. This is like impromptu. I wasn't thinking about it, but it might be a good idea to talk about the causes, because when you know the causes of a problem, then you might deal with it in a better light.
That's actually a good point. The causes of tech addiction, that's a very large area of research, but we can talk about the main arteries of the problem itself and of the causes, and that would be a good addition to our discussion.
Yeah, I think we can categorize it into 2 groups. So, tech addiction in children and tech addiction in adults. So I think the rate of tech addiction is increasing tremendously for the young age groups. What is your take?
Well, I think if we're going to talk about the causes, we're going to have to go a little bit further back and actually just define addiction in the first place.
Well, I thought you'd say, let's talk about parenting.
Well, that's another good point. But when since the topic is tech addiction, I think we're going to have to at least give our audience a working definition of what addiction is. I think it would be fair to say that you can define addiction as obsession with something that causes an actual problem, causes psychological or physical distress.
Or harm.
So when you talk about tech addiction, for example, you spend so much time and so much energy and so much attention on technological devices and content around you that are available to you, that it negatively impacts your life.
That is true. And I think there is a fine line, distinction between intense use of technology versus addiction. For example, I think personally, I'm a heavy user of technology. I'm very involved with programming languages, computers, different operating systems, and I really like integrating technology into my life in positive ways, in ways that can make an impact, a positive impact. But then, if I go overboard, if I do not set boundaries, and if I spend all of my waking hours on something new or on experimenting with new devices, then I might really lose all the balance in my life.
That's right. Well, I think one distinction we can make, and I'm going to introduce a new concept here, but it's going to be a simple one, is the distinction between a tech addict and a power user. For example, you clearly categorized as a power user. And the reason behind this is that you use technology, but you always use it with purpose and you put it to good use. And if you are introduced to new technology, the approach that you take is you don't indulge in every single type of this new technology. You just choose what you need and you base your decision on comparisons. Just thoughtful, intelligent comparisons between the options that you have, and then you just pick one and you go with it and you actually use it.
But honestly, I must admit that sometimes the power user can feel a little bit like an addict because, sometimes I definitely think you had cases where you felt so absorbed in something, in a tech product or service or something, you lost track of everything else. It happens, but if it recurs, then there's a problem.
That's right. So I think you are going to be categorized by the overwhelming patterns in your behavior rather than one or two lapses that might happen to anybody. And I think this ties back to one of the causes of tech addiction, which is the sheer power of technology. It's like technology is just fun and games for everybody. Like when you take a look at a new product that just came out, for example, a new very technologically advanced smartphone, everybody likes it. Like I don't think anybody just looks at it and says, well, what is that good disgusting piece of hardware. It's like everybody's like, oh, that's very interesting. The screen has more resolution, it has more processing power, it does more things, it has like an intelligent assistant that helps you.
And you are given the opportunity to buy a lot of necessary but not provided accessories at an unreasonable price point, right?
That's right. It comes with all the bells and whistles. You pay a fortune for it. Some of them you never use it.
Some people sell their kidneys.
Unfortunately,
real story.
That is real. That is a real story, and that happens somewhere in the world. So I think the sheer power of technology is an important cause because every addiction, there is a reason behind it. Because addiction, as far as I know, I think I've read up on this relatively recently. Addiction is an abuse of the brain's reward system.
That is true.
So you think that it starts with something that gives you pleasure. You realize that you enjoy that. For example, in this case, it's technology. You enjoy using technology and what it brings to you, to your life. And then you realize that it gives you pleasure, so you continue doing it. And
it's also a form of conditioning.
That's right. And you continue using it and doing it, and you continue to reap the rewards. Your brain thinks that it is doing great. It is getting all the benefit. But every time you do it a little bit more, because every time, in order to get that feeling of pleasure and contentment, you're going to have to do more.
That is true.
There is I think what we can call, there is a law of diminishing returns here.
That is a great term. I love that term.
Can you please give us an explanation of that so that our audience can be more informed?
Well, you can think of it in different ways, but I will give a very simple example that everyone can relate to. So, for example, if you're really hungry, you eat a couple of bites, or until you're full, you really enjoy what you ate.
Mm-hmm.
But after that point, when you're full, the more you eat, the less pleasure you'll receive. Or, in order to receive pleasure, you'll have to eat something much better.
That's right.
So, in the law of diminishing returns, the benefit that you get from something, from an activity, a product, or something, decreases the more you're exposed to it.
Exactly. So exposure is the key term here. The more you're exposed to technology, the more you want it. And the more you do it, the more you want it more, and it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And it turns into an addiction.
And it causes the problems that we outlined in the very beginning.
Exactly.
So I think we can get started with the posture issues. So
Sure.
what are some of the posture issues? Or what do we mean when we say posture issues?
Well, we have to use these devices, these technological devices, sitting down a lot. Very frequently, very often, we find ourselves sitting down. And when we sit down and look at a computer, typically it is not eye level. It sits on a table and you sit a little bit higher up. And you have to bend your head down to look at it. And you keep doing that to the point where your muscles ache. And if you do it long enough, your body starts to think that this is the natural way of sitting or the natural way of standing. And another way it happens is you're walking around and you have your head down on you're looking down and you're looking at a smartphone or a tablet, and you keep doing that to a point where again you have your neck kind of bent and you kind of let your shoulders drool. And if you keep doing this long enough, especially if you're a younger adult or a younger person, a teenager, then you're going to suffer the consequences because this will quickly turn into a habit.
That is true. For example, when you're in that shape, when you are constantly facing forward and when your face is always down, then it'll put a lot of strain on your neck and on your spine. And one of the issues is that your abdomen, the front part, will protrude forward and you will not stand straight. It will be difficult for you to stand straight, and eventually you might develop a hunchback, which is not very appealing to the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the point that you made about the protruding belly sounds very interesting to me because I am interested in exercise science. I am interested in exercise itself. I read a lot about this, and I see that trainers always give advice on how to remove the protruding belly, that last part, and they're recommending these exercises, these workouts. But your suggestion, and you are talking about a medical case actually, you're saying that since your face is always down, you develop these habits of bad posture, and it actually causes this protrusion in your belly.
That is true.
So changing your habits, your lifestyle, has a lot to do with how you look and how healthy and how fit you actually are.
That is true. And now I think we can talk about eye problems. And I personally think we've both had our fair share of eye problems.
That is a major one.
A certain degree. I mean, I like spending a lot of time with my computer and with my phone for business, for pleasure. And I really like putting on reading glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes I feel I have to, because without these glasses, my eyes hurt.
Yeah.
And so I have to be careful. And I think it also negatively impacts my vision, because over time I feel like I have problem seeing objects in the distance. So maybe years ago I had a much better eyesight, but now I think there is a slight deterioration in my eyesight.
Well, I personally have myopia, so I am farsighted. I mean, I'm nearsighted. I'm sorry. Farsighted is somebody who can't see close up. So I can't see far without my glasses. And honestly, the reason why I have this, it doesn't necessarily have to do much about technology. It is about reading books. I used to read books when I was a teenager in dim light, and that's one of the worst things that you can do for your eyes. But honestly, technology causes so much of this eye strain and eye problems in the newer generation, like maybe people who are junior to us, teenagers, young adults, people who are brought up in this culture of technological ecosystems. Like everywhere they look, there is a device that they can use for that specific task.
There is a screen everywhere.
There's a screen, there's an interface everywhere they look. On the train, out on the street, at home, in their pockets, everywhere. Even Google even tried putting a screen in front of your eyes. The Google Glass. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was an extreme.
But it didn't work well.
No,
did
it
it?
didn't. No, it didn't do well. It was sidelined by more traditional products. Just smartphones are easier to use.
Well, I guess more profitable products.
Exactly. And also they tried to make it a fashionable product, but they were not successful. A lot of people thought that you just looked dorky wearing them.
And also there was a lot of discussion on the matter of privacy.
That's right.
Because when you're wearing glasses that can record and upload anything online, and when people don't know about it, or when people know about it, they are disturbed because they don't want their private life or personal life to be exposed. And personally, I wouldn't want that.
Yeah, our sensory experiences, our experiences of sight, touch, smell, taste, and hearing, these are very personal. These are what connects us to reality itself. And suddenly having your sight and your hearing connected to a device that can publish that online anytime without you wanting, then that is dangerous. So it was a problem. But technology is definitely a major factor in a lot of eye problems that younger people especially have, and you just can't avoid it. You have to try to mitigate it, to minimize it, but really avoiding it is very difficult.
Yeah, well, we talked about two major issues when it comes to health: posture issues and eye problems. And now I think we can talk more about the psychological or the social aspects of tech addiction, because of course tech addiction has a toll on our body, but it might have a bigger toll, a bigger impact, or a bigger side effect or adverse effect on our social relations, specifically on our communication patterns. What do you think?
That's right. Well, we live in societies. We are social creatures, social beings, as we said in the first episode, as we would like to call ourselves. And being a social being comes with certain rights and liberties and certain responsibilities as well. So if you think about it, being in a social setting, communication is really a great gift to you. It's powerful, it's empowering. You can talk to people, you can get their opinion on things. You can share, you can exchange emotions with them. You can make friends, sometimes for life. And all of these encounters amount to you becoming a better version of yourself, you growing as a human being. So communication is key here. But as much as it is a gift, it is also a responsibility, because you are living in a society and you have responsibilities towards other people. And to carry out these responsibilities, just like your profession, for example, you do something for a living and you do it for people, for other people. And if you want to be able to, succeed, and if you want to even do your job, you're going to have to communicate. You're a teacher, for example, you're an instructor, you're a lecturer, and you talk to people, and you have based your profession on your ability to speak clearly and understandably, and to really address people in a way that affects both their minds and their hearts. Yeah. And if you were just face down, just staring at a smartphone 6 hours a day, without break, then you might not be able to do that. So your profession, your professional career would suffer, and you would kind of compromise your ability to function properly as a social being. So I think you can find many examples of that. Yeah. I'm sure you already have many examples of that.
Well, personally, I observe two trends when it comes to social problems and tech addiction. So either people refrain from social interactions due to tech addiction. For example, children stop playing with each other and prefer playing on their Xboxes or PlayStations. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Staying away from or keeping away from social interaction, real life social interaction, due to tech addiction.
That's right.
And the second pattern or trend that I observe, I think is more worrying, because I think relationships are becoming virtual and superficial. A young population, or the majority of people right now, well, maybe not majority, but I see a lot of people who post everything they do in their personal life. Anniversaries, meals, meetings, everything. They are literally posting their life online. And I think it makes relationships superficial, because if you really love someone deeply, if you're in a really intimate relationship, you don't have to show it to everyone. Some things are meant to be personal. Some things are meant to stay between you and the person or people you share those experiences with. And I think these kinds of social media platforms and posts make relationships superficial, because people want some, I don't know, social proof or approval or praise, or sometimes they like to show off. But I think that might turn out to be a huge problem in the long run.
I totally agree with this, and I really like the way you articulated this problem, because it is a very recent problem. Children playing on Xbox and PlayStation, that goes back. Honestly, that even includes us.
Yeah,
and,
except it wasn't PlayStation. I think we got Ataris or other
game boxes,
obsolete stuff.
Exactly. Well, we kind of dabbled in PlayStation. I personally, did.
Yeah. Well, me too.
But yeah, exactly. So I think that's an important thing. Just completely avoiding social interaction is a problem, and I think parenting. It's part of parenting to just say to your child, just get off that and go out and do something. It's just part of that. But the second point is very fresh.
It's very fundamental to our
fundamental
human beingness.
Exactly. And also, it's a phenomenon that took place within the last decade, and especially within the last 5 years. The social media platforms that we have access to today have given us an enormous power to publish everything about our lives, to really make information about our lives available to a huge population, like much larger number of people than we did before. So, and that comes with a certain responsibility, but unfortunately not everybody has that sense of responsibility. And what happens is you see that people use that to really satisfy certain personal emotions or needs. Just as you said, like people might seek approval from others. People might try to elevate their social status maybe to something that is not real, to a level that is not real. And you have very interesting phenomena, really. For example, you have the concept of beauty being redefined by social media. You have all of these social media celebrities posting on Instagram, on Facebook and Twitter, posting these airbrushed pictures of these versions of themselves that are really not real. Even in the last couple of years, there are a few such celebrities who have actually, made a point of showing people the real them, just showing them without Photoshop, this is actually me. Like I have this bulging belly.
You won't believe it, but this is me.
Exactly. So this is a very major point. This is almost like a conflict between what is real and what is seen, what is perceived.
Yeah.
So that's an important point to make here.
Well, I think we really touched on important points that matter to us personally, and that matters to our listeners. We talked about posture issues, we talked about eye problems, these are the physical side of things. Mm-hmm. But then we also talked about communication and social problems. I think we gave an all-encompassing picture of the issue.
Exactly.
And we might really call it a day.
Yeah, I agree. So I think is the only major, minor point that we can make is, tech addiction and, increase of tech addiction makes it harder for people to really benefit from technology, because it takes away from the beneficial use of technology. You have a limited period of time and you have limited attention span. And if you fill this with things that are going to bring you really no benefit and a lot of potential harm, then you can't really benefit from using technology. And the more there are people like that, the harder it is to convince people of the real advantages of a technologically advanced lifestyle. But unfortunately, since we're going that route anyways, and the technology is going to sweep the world with more products and more opportunities, I think it is important for us to realize how much we have to be at peace with technology. So tech addiction is an important obstacle.
It is. Well, finally, I can say that, based on what you said, there's of course some stigma around tech addiction, and due to tech addiction, power users might be portrayed in not a great way, but I definitely think that you should use technology to your advantage, and there's definitely a lot of benefit in using technology in productive ways and following the new trends and new developments. But in doing so, you should be aware of the problems that might arise, so you can take measures and steps to guard yourself and make use of technology in a better way.
I agree.
Well, that's the end of this episode.
Yep.
See you guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
In the next episode. What is that about? I have no idea.
Well, we're gonna see.
Okay, we'll decide and you'll learn sooner or later. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed our chat today. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave your comments. Your comments motivate us to do great work. And make sure you listen to the next episode of the English Hour, because we have some great and exciting topics coming up for you. Thank you.